Good day, my fellow Americans and good people of the world. Today, I'd like to address you about a concept that is a really important part of my life experience. I do this thing every morning. I call it my military science playlist. Essentially, it's like how I set the tone for my day. And how I reiterate to myself, like, the discipline of, what I'm working on and what I'm working towards. And there's this particular YouTube video that I reference very often for my military science playlist. And it's a commencement speech at the University of Texas by Admiral McRaven. This is from like back in 2014, so it's been a while, but what he shares is such just a crucially fundamental truth that I find it to be a reliable source of reference for me. So basically, just to break it down, he is Navy SEAL, went to Navy SEAL training, and he shares with this graduating class a commencement speech about his experience in Navy SEAL training and how he relates that directly to how people could take from that value to improve their lives if they just, take this little nugget of wisdom and carry it forward in their lives, apply it, in ways that are relevant to their life situation. As he puts it, it doesn't matter what our differences are. Like, we are fundamentally the same in terms of like how this knowledge can apply. So like, he shares this story in the context of his experience, but it is very much relevant to anybody who picks up on it. And so I've always carried it with me as a really important provision for my life experience, contextualizing things through it all of the time because I think it's a really good truth. So he basically, spoiler alert, lists out 10 things that he believes can help to change the world, and he references it to the experience of going through SEAL training. And so he says the first thing to do is to make your bed, because the small things matter. The second thing is to find someone to help you paddle the boat, because you can't make it through life alone. The third thing is that you really got to measure a person by the size of their heart, instead of, some other arbitrary distinction. Number 4 is that you really need to understand that sometimes it doesn't matter how good you do a thing or how perfect it is. There's just always going to be times that come up when your best is never going to be good enough. And he calls it being a sugar cookie, which in the references that, talking about wearing your uniform and making sure, it meets inspection standards, and, you're in a situation where it's never going to be good enough. Your instructors aren't going to let it be good enough. You're going to fail eventually in this test, and they're going to discipline you for it in a way that's going to really drive it home how important it is to be, at your best. And if you fail inspection, you run in the water and the sand and roll around and you get covered in sand and it's stuck to you and it's very uncomfortable. But references a sugar cookie, that sticks with me most vividly. But it's a good point, like, get over the fact that you're not going to always be perfect. Don't let it bother you. Imperfections actually help build resilience. Number 5 is that there is always going to be a standard of failure. And when that happens, a lot of things are gonna go not your way, and instead of being overwhelmed by it, build up the inner strength and resiliency to endure. Um, and number 6 is that sometimes there's like a certain way to do a thing, and you can do it because that's the way everybody's done it. But sometimes, in order to, break the mold and shift the paradigm, you have to do things differently, and you got to be willing to, despite the fear and the uncertainty of doing something new, you have to just like take the leap of faith and face things head on. Number 7 is that there are a lot of things in the world that can do great harm to you. But the most important thing is to don't back down from the threats. Stand up to them, assert yourself. Number 8 is in the darkest of times, you really have to be your best. You have to remain calm and know that, know what you're doing. Like, even if you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you just have to know that you know who you are and what you're doing, and be your best, because that's going to be the only thing that's going to get you through. And number 9 is that the concept is when you're knee deep in or neck deep in mud, start singing. And the idea is spreading the concept of hope. It's like when things seem hopeless and you feel helpless, and there's no end in sight, and you're suffering immensely, like, hold on to hope. Whatever thread of hope you have, hold on to it. And number 10, the last one, being in order to give up in SEAL training and to go home and to just not go through the rest of it because you just can't hold on anymore, you just want it to be over with, you have to ring a bell. If you ring the bell, then you're out and you're gone. But his point is to never ring the bell. Stick the course. It'll be rough, but it'll be worth it. So it's the guiding principles that I think are really good for, helping to keep one focused on what is important and to stay committed to what truly matters, and apply yourself in the ways that will keep you integrity bound despite external circumstances. So it is one of my favorite recordings on my military science playlist, and I share it because I think that it has beautiful, simple truths that are told by a man who I think really models a good example of a role model for peace, which is interesting to say because, he's, in the military. Well, he's retired now, but somebody being from the military would think that how would that be a role model of peace, because aren't they the person who's positioned to fight and go to war? It goes back to my personal reference of, like, The Art of War is my favorite book, not because I want to conduct war, but because I want to conduct peace. And what better way to understand how to achieve peace than to understand the elements of war? But I really think that he represents something of the integrity of what I think makes a good man, is somebody who just really gets the fact that sometimes we have to do things in society that don't necessarily match up with what we would want to have to do. but we're ready to do what it's going to take, do whatever it takes, um, to get the thing done that achieves the ultimate goal. And in this case, it's defending America, um, and also in this case of his speech is keeping America a place worth defending, inspiring others to do their best and be their best. And it's to me, it's a lot of what he referenced in the terms of hope. When you're neck deep in the mud, start singing, and it will be hope for yourself and hope for others, and that can help you get through the darkest of times. So it was just really important for me to share that concept, because I think that there's so much to be learned from that for other people. It definitely informs a lot of my sense of political philosophy. Also, again, it's part of my military science playlist, but it's also about civil science and just my sense of this is what is how we should be approaching um, our duties, our missions, our obligations. And I hope to see a world where there's more men that are role modeled off of someone like that than for there to be men that are, role modeled off of the manosphere, where they think that subjecting women is, a appropriate thing to do, or to implying violence or conducting violence against other people, as a sign of strength, because it's not. It's a sign of weakness. Reserved, and self-control is, what's called for in all circumstances. I like to call it armed neutrality. It's like I am more than capable of defending myself, but in most cases, I will remain neutral to the fact, unless left with no other reasonable terms for things to be set right. It's like if in an unjust world, people sometimes end up being forced to do things that are beyond the norms or what they would like to do. But you must stand your ground, and you have to be willing to do it when it's necessary. But it's a totally different thing to go out looking for a fight, It's a totally different thing to intentionally antagonize people, or to, stir up controversies in order to, bask in the flames of it all burning down, sort of thing. It's a terrible way to be in society. If you look at the fact that you have the capacity for defense and you use it in an offensive way, and not offensive like you're trying to win something, but offensive like you're literally trying to offend people so that you can pick a fight with them, so that you can enjoy the dopamine hit of, going at it with somebody. I think that it's a matter of being poised and confident in your capabilities to have self-control. And there's just not a lot of good men in the world that can role model that. At least not in the mainstream nowadays. There's a lot of really bad actors with terrible character, poor moral judgment, if they even understand what morals are. They're cruel, they're inhumane, and I don't think that those are the type of people that anybody should be looking up towards in any positive way. Even if the person is like taking an intellectual approach to it. It's like, I'm just trying to reason with the world, like, look at it from all perspectives and all views. It's like, I look at the world through all perspectives and views too, but that doesn't mean that I, you know, give credence to cruelty, or I give, legitimacy to those things which are likely going to sit in the, atmosphere of our social narratives, and somebody with an impressionable mind would pick that up and say, oh, that's a good idea. You know, if it's, not positive in terms of like, teaching people how to be poised and present and courteous and seeking to be of service and just kind, like, everything else just seems like it's not worth bringing, onto some main stage and then projecting out to the world, because people will consider what's being said. And, somebody once told me in so many words that it mattered to them what sort of voices they, or ideas that they were giving platform to, and voices they were giving platform to. And it was kind of like gatekeeping, and it sat with me for a really long time, because not because I thought that I somehow was unworthy of having my ideas spread, because I know that they're good ideas, and I know that they are about making the world a better place, and it's resonant with so many, people who are suffering and hoping that there's going to be, some sort of positive change that comes out there that can help them help themselves. But it was more that the fact that somebody would consider that what is more important to give platform to is not somebody who is wanting to establish and distinguish a way to make the world a better place, but it was more important to establish and distinguish people who have found a way to succeed at benefiting from all of the ways that the world doesn't work right now. That really stuck with me for a really long time. And then I started to, make reasonable conclusions about it as I saw that more and more people were doing that. And then it began to be obvious that, certain types of voices were intentionally by design being moved into the mainstream so that they can formalize a very certain and specific narrative that made the world appear to be something that it's not, in order for those capable of exploiting those distinctions to make themselves more relevant and benefit from those impressions that are given. And then you see a whole ecosystem of people reinforcing that. That's why you see, like, on podcasts, the same people being rotated through on the same channels, moving from one podcast to another and whatnot. And there's so many podcasts nowadays. It's like the whole space is just flooded, and not to say that it isn't good, because again, I think conversation is wonderful in terms of achieving, best practices and outcomes in society when it's put to its proper intended use. But when you have a bunch of people that are making noise in order to distort the voices of reason that then are, washed out of the conversation, it takes away the hope of the people, because they only hear of how bad it is. And, it makes them be in a perpetual state of fear. It's a terrible way to conduct the world. It goes right back to the quote that I was saying before. It's like, Why do we play war and not peace? There's just too few role models. But Admiral McRaven is very much one of the good role models, in my opinion. And this particular video, which I will continue to reference, has and will remain as a moderating influence on my philosophies. And I'm grateful that such a man of integrity and honesty and poise and self-control exists in the world, because we need more role models like that to teach boys how to be good men. So a lot of problems in society. And with that, I'm grateful for your valuable time and attention. Thank you for considering all that I have shared. Until next time, be well.